Good morning, everyone, and you're all very welcome to the first of our series of candidate interviews for MSU Senate and MSU Executive. This morning, we'll be talking to the lovely Hannah Keegan, who's running for the position of Vice President for Education. So, good morning, Hannah. How are you keeping?
Good morning, Simon. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Happy to be here. Happy to be starting this series, getting it up off the ground.
Absolutely.
So you're the first on. Yeah. So I think we'll just start with the very basics. So, Hannah, would you like to talk about who you are and then where you come from, background, any of that sort of stuff, just for the people listening so they can kind of get an idea of who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks very much, Simon, for that lovely introduction. So I suppose for those who don't know me, my name is Hannah Keegan. I also go by Hannah Alice. I'm 22 years old. I have been in Maynooth for about 5 years now. I completed my undergrad degree last September and graduated with a BA double honours in English and History. Currently, I am enrolled as a Masters of Arts in Irish History student. I received a scholarship to come back for a postgraduate degree this year. So I'm currently halfway through that, and I will hopefully be finished that by about mid-June of this year. So I suppose that's a little bit about my college background. I'm from Westmeath, a very, very rural area in Westmeath.
Best county in Ireland.
Absolutely. I think it's very underrepresented in the college. We don't have a lot of Westmeath people from going to Maynooth, actually. I'm from a very rural part called Tang. It's tiny. It's got a church and a school, and that's about it. I suppose the nearest town to me will be Athlone, which many people are familiar with. I am one of three kids. So I have two younger brothers. I have a younger brother called Ben, another one called Mark. Ben is doing an apprenticeship in mechanics, and my other brother Mark is just completing his leaving cert. So come from a very middle class working family background. My mom is just a hairdresser. My dad is a builder, but also a man of many trades, you could say. He does scaffolding, loads of other things. His job description changes weekly. So I suppose I'm coming from a very working class background, going for a position that I think definitely needs someone who has the experience, but also I think someone who is here for the students. Yeah,
because I always found, like, talking to you, Hannah, you're my history tutor. After all, that's how we met. But I always found you were very, like, down to earth, because I have to admit that tutorials for me were never a big thing. You know, it was never something I liked going to, because there's less people that you can be picked out from. You know, and it was a little bit intimidating, especially as a first year. I think you're getting the hang of, but I must say your tutorials were the ones I actually enjoyed coming to. I'm not just saying that trying to flatter you now that you're here, but genuinely, you're just down to earth. I'm trying to be unbiased here as an interviewer, but I definitely noticed that about you. And what was that slogan you said to me earlier?
Well, I feel this is just something personally now. I know obviously with the role comes a lot of politics in it. I am not a person who has a political background. I'm not a politician. I am here for the students, as a student, to represent the students, and that is solely my goal if I become VP of Education next year.
I think that's brilliant. I think that's exactly what you need. I think a lot of the time with things like this, people can get bogged down with politics and forget that at the end of the day, we are all just people. We're trying to improve things for people. It's a people club. The university it's all just for people. So I suppose, Hannah, what I'm getting at here is, what's your action plan? What would you like to see happen around Maynooth?
I suppose, if I might just start in with my experience for it before, because it kind of leads in then to what I hope to achieve. I have always been a student that has worked throughout her college degree. That's never been something that hasn't. Unfortunately, university was only a possibility if paid for, and majority of it I did pay for it by myself, which I'm very thankful for, because when I did receive my results last June, I cried tears of joy, because I think you develop a certain sense of achievement and you're very proud of yourself having worked through it. And I think there's too much emphasis on students that they shouldn't work throughout their degree, and really that's not feasible at all, because everyone should have a chance to go to college. You know, I believe that education is a right, it's not a privilege. It shouldn't just be for those who are able to pay their entire way through, okay? It should be for students who have part-time jobs, may need to put that job as priority over their lectures, and unfortunately that's just a reality for most students. They do have to do that. So like for myself, in my final year, I paid my fees weekly, I paid my accommodation weekly, and to do this I did have to work 3 jobs. So I was fortunate enough that I started as a front office operations team staff member in the Maynooth Students' Union Information Centre. And then during my second semester, I joined the finance team in the union and also the events team. So I was lucky enough that way to get very involved in the union throughout my last year. I was also a third year history academic representative, which really stood to me in the sense that I was attending faculty meetings, I was listening to students. And you have to remember, this is a time as well when we had just come back after COVID. There was a huge amount of uncertainty in the first semester of my final year, whereby most people thought, oh, we're going to go back online. On-campus exams aren't going to be a thing, it's going to be online, and you have to deal with students, emailing you about that and discussing issues like this with you. And then I think especially this year as well, I've started my master's, and as I said, I was lucky enough to get a scholarship, but I still have to work. I'm working 3 jobs. I'm in the info centre again under the supervision of Miss Amory Cudden. For those who don't know, Amory is the best front office manager, and she is just the light of Maynooth Students' Union.
She's lovely, yeah.
She is. Nice. She's fantastic. And then I was actually lucky enough to join the library as well in the university, so I am working as part of the facilities and events team, and then I am also, as you mentioned, a tutor with the Department of History. So I teach 24 students twice a week. So from that perspective, you do get the sense that I'm on the ground most days, every day of the week. I'm in college, I'm talking to students, I'm dealing with students, I'm listening to their issues, and it's the same thing cropping up over and over again.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because you were saying to me earlier that you're not one for canvassing. You're not someone who'd go out and yes. and hand out posters and talk to people like that. But it's funny that from the sounds of it, and from what I've seen, I always see you. You've seen me coming in many an evening into the library after
Absolutely.
being out somewhere looking for shelter from the elements. But it's funny that you're really just ingrained into the university. I do love talking to you, because
thank you.
I feel like, Hannah, you have the best insight into it that I've come
yes.
across. And I like the fact you're a postgraduate. You're the only postgrad yes. running for the...
I am. I do believe I had a discussion with this the other day with one of the other candidates. I think I am the only postgraduate officer that is going for an executive position. So I do have that representation that I feel is so strongly needed for postgraduate students.
Yeah.
I didn't realise it before until I was a postgraduate student myself this year, that they're so underrepresented. We do not have class reps. We have 1 doctoral representative and 1 postgrad representative, and that's it for the entire postgraduate population. And there's a couple of thousand of us, and really that's not enough. And I think as well, there's a tendency to focus on undergraduates who have societies and coffee mornings, which is fantastic. They're getting to know people, but that is not a case for postgraduate students. There's not regularly weekly coffee mornings or meetups or even discussion about career pathways, and I think that is something that really needs to be highlighted, because a lot of postgrads don't actually mix with other postgrads unless they're in your course. This is the first year, and I have to say that was the huge difference I found from sitting in an undergraduate lecture hall of maybe 400 students in English, for example, or history, then to go to a postgraduate degree that's specialised in an area that you like, of only maybe 13 to 20 students. You meet these people who you've gone through 3 years with and never spoken to, because the lectures are too big. There's no interaction. You may never talk to these people until you get to a postgraduate level and the class sizes are smaller, and that is, I think, a huge thing, smaller class sizes.
And it's something that we're at the bottom of the ladder now. Us first years, that we never really even think that far ahead, but it does seem like, it's so important. And I suppose along with the representation, you're coming along with the experience as well.
Yes.
And I just, again, to reiterate, I do love talking to you, because you've been through it all.
Thank you.
You've seen it all, and it's just interesting. Yeah. It's interesting to get your perspective on the whole thing. As I'm sure you were even talking about the how you've noticed a change in the Students' Union since you were here in first year. And to me, I love the Students' Union at the minute, of course. Do I have to say that because we're in here? But,
Absolutely not. No, I think definitely when I started here in first year, there was a fantastic Maynooth Students' Union executive team. You know, you the likes of Katie Deegan, Kieran Watts, Paul Kenny and Michael Butler. And like first year, when I was in first year, it was donkeys years ago now. It was about 2018, 2019. And, you know, there was just, it was a different atmosphere. It was a different level of interaction with the students. There was much more involvement. Having been here for almost 5 years now, you can see I suppose the distance that's being placed between the students and the union, and it's unfortunate to see because it has fantastic services. You know, I work in the library, but I tell people who go over there to come to print here because it's the cheapest place on campus. It really is. And same for binding or any other services. You know, day in, day out, the union is there, but I think its value isn't represented to its fullest. It needs to be more open to a wider community, and I feel that it will be great to see the union get back up to that level that it was when I started my first year degree here.
Because I think you were saying that or someone was saying that the societies, there's a divide now between the societies and the students' union. Is that right? Or
I wouldn't say there's necessarily a divide. They are separated now from the union. You have the clubs and societies that's run by the two Marys over in the John Hume building, and they are over the societies. However, we have the involvement from the societies whereby our Vice President of Student Life normally is very good with involving themselves with the societies. And also the Info Centre hosts coffee mornings weekly. So you know yourself from being in the Info Centre, Simon, that we had a Ukrainian Society coffee morning, we have History Society on Friday, we have Pride Sock every Wednesday for a coffee morning. You know, there is the involvement there because the space is there, and it's great to see the students use it, especially in a post-COVID era. I think it's so nice to see students on campus. It's thriving, it's bustling. You know, we have people. I know the majority of the college, you know, Maynooth is an 80% commuter college nearly, but it is great to see that interaction again. From someone's perspective, as I did live up here in my second year during COVID, and there was no one on the campus, you know, it was deserted, and it had an eeriness to it.
I can imagine,
yeah, absolutely. So it's great to see. It's great to see it.
And you commute yourself, do you, or are you on campus?
No, I actually was lucky enough to live on campus for my 3 years, my undergrad, and now this year I am living with a lovely family just about a 15-minute walk away, and they are very nice. So
do you have any thoughts on now the accommodation situation?
It's horrendous, I won't lie. As an undergrad, like, you know, I'm still paying off 2 student loans for my on-campus accommodation. As I said, I paid it weekly in my final year, which did help, but it's extortionate. Like, even at the beginning of this year, I was paying high rents just like everyone else. I know a couple of my friends who are final years and postgraduates are paying up on $650 to $700 for a box room, and that's not including bills. So I think it's definitely something that needs to be addressed. More accommodation needs to be given to students. There has not been any new development in Maynooth for student accommodation on campus, that is, since I'd say between 2010 and 2015.
Really,
so it's a long time. Yeah, it is definitely a long time. So it's much needed. As well, I think students should not feel the pressures that they're feeling now for university. You know, there was a time when people would go to university and the only thing they would have to worry about is your lectures. That's it. Assignments. You know, there's none of that anymore. If you talk to any student, if you just pull a student to the side and say to them, how are they doing? They will more than likely talk to you about the pressures financially that they're having, mentally. You know, some people have health issues that are costly too. And then if you are a student, the only way to pay for it is to work. And then that takes its toll on your academic work. So the two don't bounce off each other, okay? The more work you place on paying for stuff, the less goes into your college work, and that is unfortunately reflected in your results.
It is sad to see. I think times are tough. You know, like I work every weekend myself, so I can definitely see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people do. It's unfortunate that that has become a priority.
Absolutely.
It's not sitting in the lectures, it's not going to the tutorials, it's a priority. And I think you do need, it's nice though that there are a lot of people to help. I think we need to encourage that more, and even like your tutorial environment, I think people could learn from that, really.
People would say it's very lackadaisy. It's very soft.
But we do, my highest marks were in that subject.
Yes.
And it wasn't even because it was my best subject, but I felt that I could go in and ask for help, and even stuff like the referencing.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something, especially in first year, that, I did Leaving Cert history, and it was never, we didn't have to reference
No,
like
absolutely, it's not a thing. And I think if you ask any of the other tutors, they will probably laugh and say that Hannah is one of the softest tutors. I'm very easygoing, but I am strict when it comes to grading and when it comes to referencing. If you do the work, you see it in your results. And I know a lot of first years feel like there's a pressure to attend lectures, and obviously the student that does attend will see it in their marks, but I think more emphasis needs to be placed on tutorials. I think tutorials are far more important. You're getting that one-to-one interaction that's needed, that you don't get sitting in a lecture hall of 400, 500 people. I think class sizes need to be looked at, and I definitely think that our on-campus exams resemble too much a Leaving Cert exam.
Yes, for sure, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I think while some companies I know do require that students have graduated sitting an on-campus exam, I think more emphasis needs to be placed on percentages that are given to continuous assessment. So we're very lucky in the history department that majority of your assessment, particularly the first years, is continuous, and then that allows you to get the grades even if you do badly in another assignment. So it's not placing so much emphasis on the exam, whereby I know a student who is doing a double major in statistics and biology, and their on-campus exams that they have had every year for 4 years are worth between 70 and 85%, and that's just for one exam that if you don't sit on the day, you're forced to repeat it in August. So I made this point to my class actually last Friday. Yes, about how if you are 5 to 10 minutes late to an exam, you will not get in the door of the exam hall, which I think is absolutely shocking, because that student may be a final year student and you may be sick on the day. People are still getting COVID. There's a lot of illnesses around, and you don't plan on getting them, but it just happens. And then if you go to sit your exam and you can't, and you're a final year student and all your friends are going to graduate in September, you will not be able to graduate until you repeat the exam in August, get your results, and then you will not graduate until end of October, early November. So you've missed out on that opportunity to graduate with your friends because you were sick for a day or because you were 10 minutes late to an exam. So I think that definitely needs to be addressed.
It'd
if
be
I
nice
am
to see
elected.
change in that, yeah.
I think so, and I think it's something that's not really talked about enough. I think exams, class sizes, they're things that we tend to just roll over and go along with, but I think it is time to see some change, particularly for yourself as a first year. The stress that comes with an on-campus exam that could be worth 60 or 70%, it doesn't help students perform well on the day.
And just coming out of Leaving Cert as well, it's like I thought brilliant, more continuous assessment. Absolutely. We're getting out of that habit of, because what I loved about two things, for instance, construction and history, was so many components of it were practical, or like for history we had our research project, but it's just there's a lot of stress. There's that, and I feel like a lot of people would agree with you on that it's just horrible. And especially the way we had, after Christmas, all I was consumed with over Christmas, as I'm sure many of you were, was, exactly. Oh my God, I have exams, and all mine ended up the same week. Yes. And it was just very, very stressful. So it'd be lovely to see a change with that.
I think so.
So is there anything else, Hannah, that you would like to kind of say to people now that you have the chance to hit a wide audience?
I suppose as someone who, I can be chatty if I'm talking to people, but otherwise I will not put myself out there. I'm very much an introvert. So this, I suppose, is my time to say that if I am elected as Vice President of Education, I really, really hope I am, because I believe I have the experience from being in Maynooth as a student for 4, nearly 5 years now, working within the union as an academic representative and a staff member for 2 years. I believe that experience will stand to me if elected for Vice President of Education. And I think that as a postgraduate student as well, I think I'm bringing a new modern approach possibly to a group, like a minority of students that aren't represented very well. And I think definitely that more emphasis needs to go on class sizes, exams, even our academic representatives. You know, do we have enough per course? Do we have, you know, enough representatives that are reaching the entire student body? And I think that definitely needs to be looked at, as well as the degree structure. You know, if a student fails their exam at Christmas, they need to be told that that's not the be all end all that they have to repeat. Okay, in majority of instances, students have gained enough percentage from their continuous assessment to pass, and I think that's not emphasized enough. Majority of people will just panic and think, okay, I failed, that's it, that means I'm out, or I have to repeat the year, and most of the time that's not the case.
That's great. Well, I really enjoyed talking to you today, Hannah.
Thank you.
It was nice to have this interview time. I'm sure you were happy, like, with the whole...
Absolutely.
It's nice to have an opportunity to actually talk to people. So, well, that's super, Hannah. I think we'll wrap it up there. Thanks
That's
very much
great.
for coming, and well, we hope to hear more from you in the future.
And I'll just remind people to vote on March 7th and 8th for Hannah as your number one for VP Education if you would like to see change. The main thing is educate today so that we can teach tomorrow. Thank you, Simon.
Thanks very much, Hannah.